Hey everyone. This morning's show, it's Naomi Wolf of Outspoken and Daily Clout with Loki keeping guard. We're in what we call Liberty Lair as as opposed to Liberty House, which is elsewhere. And that is the name of our funky, like 1890, almost shack in the middle of the woods, somewhere in upstate New York, somewhere in the Hudson Valley. And it's it's a humble home, but we love it. Definitely slapped together, we think, as formerly a gambling house or a house of prostitution. This area was famously known as somewhere that people fleeing the law in Massachusetts would come to over the mountains. I'm not going to name them for security reasons, to get away from Massachusetts police, basically, in the 19th century. It's also a site where there were famous fist fist fights. Oh, thank you, sweetheart. My beloved husband just turned on my ring light. Thank you. And people used to come up here from the city in the 19th century and just go crazy. They would watch a fist fight, a wrestling match, a boxing match, I guess it's called, and then lose their minds, get drunk, and then rampage across the countryside. There were famous events in which people from the city, mostly, no disrespect, sweetheart, mostly Irish, would come up here and okay, he told me the story. Brian O'Shea told me the story, so he's on board with the Irishness of the rampaging in the 19th century. And they would literally scour the countryside roundabout and kill all the livestock and eat it and barbecue it, in the open air and eat it and just go crazy and then go back to the city. So it's we think it used to be a house of ill repute or a gambling den for a bunch of reasons. It's very kind of poorly or casually put together, barely not level, barely kind of slapped together. And there's really no arable land around where we are. We're really in a swamp. I mean, I don't know if you can really see it, but it's pretty swampy out there. Which is like lovely because it's full of wildlife. And well, that I'm terrified of the bear, but it's also like nowhere that you could have a farm, right? So what were people doing here? We don't know, but definitely up and down this neighborhood, people were gambling and having a dance hall and being prostitutes or sex workers, whatever you called them back in the 19th century. So it's Liberty Lair. we lead a much quieter life than that, but I just wanted to give you a sense of where we are. And this morning's broadcast was very heavy. It was my interview with Dr. Jyante Kunadasan, whose work was really appropriated very unethically to date by the House Judiciary Committee and Representative Jim Jordan, who is announcing the story of the Pfizer's delay of the efficacy of the COVID vaccine illicitly to disadvantage President Trump in 2020, who was running for re-election, and to advantage challenger Joe Biden. They slow walked the approval till several days after the election, and they didn't have to. So that's a big scandal. The guy who was part of this just got busted. He told his new employers, GSK, another pharma company, that he was worried about getting investigated for having done this, and that he wanted to be relocated to Canada so they wouldn't catch him. And instead, GSK turned him into the feds, essentially, or to the House Judiciary Committee. But he wouldn't have been worried about that if it hadn't been for Dr. Kunadasan's story. So it was a very moving interview this morning. And I do hope that Senator Ron Johnson, who also substantially used the work of Ed Berkovich and Amy Kelly earlier this week without fully crediting them at all in his Senate hearing, and also Representative Jim Jordan will rethink and properly credit everybody. So that was this morning. But, I've kind of done my heavy lifting for the day, dark, sad, difficult stories. And I'm going to do a brief segment. Substack has told me that this is actually okay. My training as a journalist makes me nervous about it, but I'm just going to believe them. They say that it's okay to just hop on screen and share something really casual and informal and then hop off. So that's what I'm doing. Although when Brian O'Shea, who's one room over, is done with his work, we're going to pick up again with a new segment of him and me, basically. That's been well received in the past by our audience. And this will be called In the Lair, because we're at Liberty Lair. And you can join us in the lair. It'll be about half an hour from now. In the meantime, I'm back with a subject that is very dear to my heart, which is how to live a life without being subjected to allopathic medicine or allopathic big pharma pharmaceuticals, including beauty treatments, skin and hair products. Those of you who have followed my Liberty Lifestyle episodes in the past know that this is a real passion of mine. It definitely got more passionate after the work we did from 2022 to 2020, the very beginning of 2025, on the Pfizer documents, because I saw how untrustworthy the FDA was, that basically they didn't do anything to keep us safe. On the contrary, they colluded with something very dangerous. So, and then I almost died in the hospital, as you know, if you follow my work last summer, 2 summers ago. And as a result, I want to live my life. And also I have people I love who got vaccinated. So I'm obsessed with trying to live a life that is as healthy and pure as possible. I also have a serious health condition, unfortunately, spina bifida occulta. But I was told, 20 years ago that by now I'd be in a wheelchair, losing all my faculties. So I feel like I'm doing quite well with my focus on boosting my immune system, learning everything I can from the network of incredible alternative healers, non-traditional healers, back to old traditions healers, dissident doctors with whom we are gratefully surrounded, especially people like Dr. Ely and other kind of knowledgeable people who integrate the best of modern medicine and the best of traditional medicine and knowledge. Darling, when you get a chance, would you kindly throw me a tissue? Just when you get a chance, nothing urgent. Thank you, sweetheart. So about a year and a half ago, when I first started on this journey, I realized from a little bit of research, something that a lot of people have known. I was a bit slow catching up on this, but just how incredibly toxic over-the-counter, even very expensive skin and hair care products are. I mean, chock-a-block with, thank you so much, sweetheart. Chock-a-block with, alcohol that dries out your skin and hair, parabens that disrupt your hormones, horrible things. And we know a lot more about that. Excuse me, as a consequence, and I was also very intrigued with traditional, beauty care, because I'm an English major and an English DPhil, not a medical doctor. And you would read about women looking after their complexion with glycerin, for instance, or taking milk baths, or treating illness by lying in the sunshine, or treating nervous prostration by going to the seaside and breathing the salt air. And in addition to that, so it seemed like we lost a lot of wisdom of just like how healing that can be, but also, brushing their hair with natural bristle brushes, 100 strokes a night. And if you see images of women in the 19th century, from all walks of life, not just wealthy women, they tend to have this unbelievably long, healthy, strong hair that, can extend kind of down to their knees. and without all the chemicals that we use today. I also realized when I started to experiment with natural skin and hair products that my skin and hair would be much healthier when I wasn't, traveling and using the products in the hotel, no matter how expensive or fancy they were. Uh, so J9 is Goose says, you are helping me calm down and ground right now. Your voice is soothing. Well, that's wonderful, because sometimes when I do these segments, I feel a little guilty because it's not like urgent, there's a genocide upon us, or, geopolitics, or, important subjects. On the other hand, taking care of ourselves and living as healthy and long and independent a life as possible without falling into the clutches unnecessarily of allopathic medicine and the pharma industry is really important. So, and people have been just so like validating and wonderful about encouraging me to keep going. So I'm glad that you are finding my voice soothing. I hope everyone feels relaxed as we dive into this, and I hope I will continue to soothe you. So I did about a year and a half ago, when I first began this, a demonstration of how to make tallow face cream, but it was a long time ago, and I've added a few refinements since then, and also got a really good source that is not smelly or gross or weird. So I thought I should reprise it, just because, I'm 63, no work, no surgery, whatever. Not, I can take no credit for it. I'm just a wimp and scared of, knives and interventions and gels now and things being injected into my body or face. I don't trust it at all. But paradoxically, you can see from pictures that ever since I began to use tallow and not, expensive over-the-counter creams, my skin's actually healthier than it was, when I was younger. So that being said, and this is true, by the way, for many ladies and even gentlemen in my immediate circle, they will initially scoff or say, get that away from me. Naomi, don't give me the tallow. It's gross. It's weird. I don't want it. It's from an animal. It's, animal fat. And I understand the ick factor. I do initially. However, humans have used tallow or animal fat, different kinds of animal fat in different parts of the world. I mean, Eskimos use seal fat, for example, as a lubricant in all kinds of practices, and have done for thousands of years. So it's a little bit, I'm really interested in things that are conditioned, like reactions that are conditioned, and going, ew, animal fat is definitely, I think, a conditioned response, because tallow has been used since time immemorial, including for skincare. All right, so this is we're just going to dive right in. Is that okay? I need some validation. You look amazing. Wow, 63. Thank you. I'll take it. The older I get, the less offended I am by a compliment. We all want to look as youthful as possible for as long as possible. So, and by the way, what a scam. My first book was The Beauty Myth, and it looked at, the beauty industry. If they put alcohol in face creams, which almost every expensive commercial, even cheap, more expensive commercial face cream does, and toners as well, you're going to dry out your skin. And then you're going to think, oh my God, I need more expensive face cream. I need more expensive products. The same thing with alcohol in your hair. It's a preservative, but it's also absolutely terrible for your hair and your skin. And it does lead to that very artificial cycle of, oh my God, my skin looks terrible. I need to redouble my efforts to give pharma all my money. So having said all of that, here we go. And it's almost Shabbat. So I'm going to stop at 6:30 or so when it's dark. Oh, okay. Well, I'm going on with Brian, but he'll do all the electronics. I'll just sit there and chat. Okay, baby. I really got into Shabbat recently, and I'll tell you about that another time. But this is my new source. So there has been an issue. I'll just be really honest with other sources of tallow that I've tried. They're stinky. They smell like they smell like beef fat. I mean, they do. They make you smell like a hamburger a little bit. And they also can have very disconcerting side effects, like your dog will try to lick your face, because you're wearing beef fat on your face. So this is a source that I found, which is deodorized beef tallow. And it's from Traverse Bay Bath and Body Affordable Luxury, and it's natural. And it's from bearlakesoap.com, Traverse City, Michigan. So this is kind of important to me that it's American, because one thing I've learned, there's more and more evidence all the time, is that our pharma supply is from China very often, and our cosmetic supply is often from China, and they are not our friends. I mean, I don't mean the Chinese people, of course, I mean the Chinese Communist Party, pardon me. So we really want to get material that is not sourced from China, which can often be, imitation or full of lead or gross things. So this is from Michigan. Interestingly, the middle of beef country, I would think. They've got a lot of leftover tallow, no doubt. So it doesn't have any indication of what you can use it for. And I'm just going to show you, it looks like that. So it's, it's kind of gross. It kind of looks like what's left over in your pan when you cook hamburger. But I'm just going to take this, Amazon, I don't know, Rubbermaid or whatever. And I'm just going to scoop it out. It's kind of hard to scoop out. I'm just going to show you, because it's got a narrow mouth and it's very thick and gunky, but it won't stay gunky. But it is a little bit of a labor of love to scoop out. It has no smell at all, which is a relief, believe me, because as good as you're going to look, you don't want to smell like a hamburger. I have smelled like hamburger, and I don't recommend it. It's not optimal. And we don't want like the crunchy granola alternative health and beauty network to get a reputation of smelling like weird edibles. So I just scooped out like 2 ounces. And this is definitely something that you can do. I'm going to put it down so it doesn't block the light. You can do this, you really don't need a recipe. It's really just by preference, right? How liquidy do you like it? Are you going to use it mostly on your face or on your body? If you're going to use it on your body too, which is totally excellent, you just want to make it a little more liquidy, a little thicker for your face. So there you've got an ounce or 2. Okay, so now the really cool thing about this is that you can add essential oils that you like, your own preference for essential oils. So I went crazy, and it's just like being in middle school. It's so much fun. It's like crafting, but without the talent. You don't need it. But I went crazy and ordered, and they're not very expensive. They're about maybe $10 or $15 each. It's not cheap, but it's much cheaper over time than over-the-counter commercial skin or hair products. I mean, I'm really aware that I'm saving literally $70 a month by not buying skin and hair beauty products from pharmacies anymore, even though I bought cheap ones. Somehow you can't go into a drugstore, I've said this before, without magically spending $70. I don't know how it always adds up to $70, but it seems to. And so I just don't have that expense anymore, which is really a savings over time. This stuff lasts quite a long time. And this whole container, all these, how many ounces is this? It's gigantic. It doesn't say how many ounces it is. It's like, I don't know, 60 ounces. 112 ounces. Wow. It's heavy, the whole thing was like $30. So it's going to last the rest of my life probably. And so I went crazy ordering essential oils so that I can make products that smell different depending on my mood, or even, make them as gifts and give them to people depending on what they like. So I've got peppermint essential oil. I've got frankincense. I've got rose. I was in India recently where essential oils are very affordable. And I got, wonderful rose and sandalwood and frankincense and, fabulous essential oil. So you can use anything you like. I've got peppermint. This is basil. And I had never used basil or basil, I guess you say in America. I don't mean to be pretentious. I did graduate work in England, so I probably have some pretentious leftovers in my pronunciation. They say basil. Um, one doesn't usually use basil in a skincare product, but it it actually is so weirdly relaxing. Like, I've had a very stressful day full of anger and spleen, very combative things going on in the world, my team being, disregarded, and I really want to let those feelings go. It's the start of the weekend, it's the start of Shabbat. I want to be peaceful. I used to think people who talked about essential oils were ridiculous. But as I sniff this basil, it really, really is actively like relaxing me. Every inhalation just makes me feel calmer. So, and Andrea Harpin, I love this comment, said, "You touched my heart when you emphasized how great it is to save $70 a month. You are one of us." Andrea Harpin, thank you. Honestly, I think about this a lot. It's so interesting, shame, right, in our culture. You're never supposed to talk about being broke. It's like it's this giant shame, just like you're never supposed to talk. It's getting a little easier about, having a serious health condition. But I was a super broke single mom. I mean, I grew up pretty broke. My family didn't have a lot of money. I mean, we had almost no money. My dad was a teacher at a state university. That's not almost no money, but it's not affluence. And like we were, on a tight budget, I would say, and worried about money. Well, like 80% of people, 85% of people in this country are. I think 30% of the population lives paycheck to paycheck in America. And when I was a single mom, I was, externally famous and successful and going to fabulous parties and going to galas, literally so broke, so broke. And I've given, this is another conversation. It's another essay or another episode, but I've given a lot of thought to what being that broke does psychologically. And I'll never, ever, ever forget it, no matter if I'm broke or not broke. And it's so debilitating psychologically. It takes up so much of the space of your brain, that I hope I never forget how important it is to be able to save $70 a month. That's a lot of money for most everyone. And even for people who are lucky enough not to worry about $70 a month, there are better things to spend $70 a month on, So thank you. That's a really sweet thing to say. And it means a lot to me. So I just want to reach out there and see where my argan oil is. And it looks like I didn't bring my argan oil. So, oh, here it is. Wonderful. Sorry, I don't mean to give you a look at down my dress. That, I apologize. That was definitely a blooper. So here's my argan oil, organic argan oil. And it's from Nature's Oil. And you can mix they call it in the fancy world of mixing this stuff together, carrier oils. You don't have to use fancy language. That just means like an additional oil you add to your tallow to get it to be exactly the texture that you want it to be, or to smell the way you want it to smell, or to feel the way you do. So some people will use sesame oil. A lot of massage therapists use sesame oil. Some people will use coconut oil, and so on. So I really like argan oil for how conditioning it is and how silky it is. And also it really doesn't have a smell. And again, this was a little more expensive. It's from a nut. I didn't even realize argan oil is from a nut. And I would say this was about $15 to $18. But again, I've had it for months. You only need a little bit. It lasts forever. So even though these things are a bit of an investment, or kind of an investment when you start out, you will really find savings over time. So I want this to be an oil that I can use for my face and my body. So I'm adding a fair amount of argan oil, maybe half an ounce, all right, to the 2 to 3 ounces. And then probably a fancier person would not do this with her finger, but I'm just mixing it up with my finger because I forgot to bring, I have a fork, but it's too late. Actually, I don't need to gross you out too much. I'll get a fork. And you can use anything. You can use a spoon or even a little whisk. But it's just so easy to mix it up, and it mixes very, very easily. So it's kind of the texture of, right now, it's the texture of like frosting or like cream cheese frosting. Can you see that? Okay, good. So again, you just want to add enough oil to get it to the texture that you like. And you can see that it's moving a little bit. That's just about the texture that I want. Smells like nothing, which is so nice, right? But again, if you wanted to use it just on your body, you would add more oil. If you add too much argan oil or sesame oil, if you wanted a more affordable option, sesame oil is probably cheaper. So is coconut oil. Then if you've added too much, you just want to add more tallow, till you get to exactly the texture that you want. So now I'm just going to throw in my scent. And again, could be jasmine, could be rose. I've made this with jasmine. I absolutely love it with jasmine. Could be frankincense, could be literally vanilla, it could be whatever you want. So I'm just going to add a couple of drops, and this is like potent stuff. So again, no recipe. I just added about 7 drops, and it comes out nicely, in drop by drop. It doesn't, you don't pour it, you don't get accidents. That's something I'm definitely prone to, is accidents. Oh, it smells so good. Oh my gosh. So something that didn't smell like anything, now I've whipped it together and it actually emulsified really nicely. There are no real lumps there. You can see it's quite smooth. Now it smells like basil, and it's lovely. So you just literally take a little bit. I'm going to look quite shiny on camera, and you just, okay, this this is something I was taught years ago, and I taught my daughter, I taught my stepdaughter. I might as well teach you. I learned from Russian facialists that you should never pull your face down or this way when you're washing your face or caring for or putting on lotion. Always up, right? Always up. And those Russian ladies know there's a long tradition of Russian facial care. For whatever reason, that's an interesting thing to pursue. But you just, up, and you may want to, I've been learning a lot about the lymphatic system. You may want to just kind of rub, this is where your lymph nodes are, just kind of give yourself a little bit of a, little caress there, and keep that lymph flowing. It's really good for you. You can do this, you can do this. Of your facialist, if you ever have one, would do that. I never go that far, but that's it. You can see that I look pretty shiny. That may be shinier than you want to look. So it's probably a good idea to do it at night before you're about to go to bed. Unless your partner objects. But usually if you just rub it in, quite a bit, it'll become less shiny. It is always going to be a little bit, it's a fat, right? So it's always going to be a little bit oilier than highly processed lotions, which are really designed through all kinds of chemicals to disappear into your skin, into your bloodstream, bringing all their nonsense with them. So I think it's well worth putting up with a little bit of, glow. And of course, if you're going out and it's too much, you can put a little powder on, or rice powder, and that'll blot the extra shininess. I can't believe I'm sharing this with you, but why not, right, at this point in my life? So I found that really super helpful. Now, in the last few minutes that we have together, and let me know in the comments, J9 is Goose says, yes, it does take up so much brain space, so much energy. It does. And can I just say, like, this is a bit of a detour, but modern banking, right? Like TD Bank, the bank I banked with all those years. I was a broke single mom. It's so evil. They just had a settlement, minuscule settlement. Like I got 12 cents in the mail in a check, but a massive class action settlement because all those years they would cash the big purchases chronologically ahead of your smaller purchases so as to rack up your $30 overdraft fees. Can you believe it? And I remember going in, I mean, even then I was an annoying pest, like I remember going in to my branch and saying, it's illegal to do this. You got like, this is against the law. Here's the regulation that says you can't do this. I mean, I was a nerd back then too. And they would just blow me off politely, give my dog a biscuit or a lollipop for me. Uh, and sure enough, there was a giant class action settlement in which it became abundantly clear that it was against the law to do this. But it's so evil, right? You're watching every penny and carefully budgeting. And you do a week where you have a $5 purchase, a $10 purchase, a $15 purchase, and then a $100 purchase, and you've budgeted it right to the limit. You know exactly what you've got. You're not going to be overdrawn, but they'll move the $100 purchase ahead of everything else so as to trigger $30 fees with every $5 purchase that you made thinking you had enough money. Isn't that horrible? Ugh, people like that have a special place in wherever they're going to go. Really, really, really awful. And you can, that sense of being out of control, that I would say most people have, trying to just stay on top of their money with banks playing games like that. Anyway, that's a bit of a detour, but all the more reason to take one giant expense out of your budget. I mean, giant expense over time. All right, now this is the last fun thing I want to share with you. I got blue light blocking glasses, and I got so carried away with the excitement of this and they were not very expensive. I think these were about $25. I got 4. I got one for Brian, and I got some for loved ones, and I'm going to impose them on my loved ones. Like many other things, I give them or send them. They're like, what is this? What is this? But by now you've probably heard about the discussions about blue light. And Shide J says, what is the name of the tallow from Michigan? I'll hold it up again. It is called Traverse Bay Bath and Body Affordable Luxury from bearlakesoap.com. And this is not a sponsor. So this is I always disclose a sponsored post. This is not a sponsored post. I love my sponsors. We're very selective about our sponsors, but this is, just something I found that I love. I don't have any kind of relationship with the manufacturers. So how does blue light affect your eyes? Well, if you haven't heard, I'll just let you know. This is actually from a very allopathic medicine, belly of the beast website. It's health.ucdavis.edu. So UC Davis is part of the, big bad pharma medicine kind of nexus. But even though they try to downplay the damage to your eyes from electronic devices, they have to admit that it's ultimately bad. And most of us use some kind of electronic device for many hours a day. And, people are averaging like half their waking hours. Teenagers are up to 7 hours a day on their phones or on blue light. So what is blue light? It's part of the visible light spectrum. It's what the human eye can see. And so it has a certain vibration, which is very interesting to me. It vibrates between the 380 to 500 nanometer range. So it's got the shortest wavelength and highest energy. And I have to say, I feel that. Like, you may laugh, but I am sensitive to electromagnetic fields. I knew something had changed in our house, and then I just found out today they installed a smart meter on our house, so we have to tackle that. But I can really get headachy and just feel the vibe, the bad vibe of bad electromagnetic fields. So about a third of all visible light is considered blue light. Sunlight is the biggest source. That's a surprise to me. I thought sunlight was golden. It used to be golden anyway. And artificial sources of blue light include fluorescent light, LED TVs, computer monitors, smartphones like this one, and tablet screens. So, shilling for pharma, they point out that there are health benefits of blue light, like alertness, memory, and brain function, and elevates mood, which I would literally want to double check their sourcing for that. However, they're acknowledging that blue light exposure is ultimately damaging. And according to the Vision Council, 80% of Americans use digital devices more than 2 hours a day. Almost 67% use 2 or more devices at the same time, and 59% have symptoms of digital eye strain. So our eyes are not good at blocking blue light. So nearly all visible blue light passes through the front of the eye, the cornea and lens, and reaches the retina. But constant exposure to blue light over time could damage retinal cells and cause vision problems, such as age-related macular degeneration. It can also contribute to cataracts, eye cancer, and growths on the eye covering over the white part of the eye. Ew. And children are even more at risk than adults because their eyes absorb more blue light. Wow, that's so scary. Also, people tend to blink less when using digital devices. So that contributes to dry eye and eye strain. And eye strain can also cause, you may not even be aware of what's causing it, headaches, blurred vision, neck and shoulder pain. And a lot of people are experiencing that. So even more interestingly to me, because someone I love in this house, he's talked about it. So I don't think I'm going off the, off the campsite, but disrupted sleep. People really need to have deep healing sleep for all the reasons we know, right? Your body repairs, your cells repair, your brain has to have deep sleep in order to be creative. Well, exposure to blue light before bedtime, which we all are tempted to do, like be on the phone, be on your computer before bed, can also disrupt sleep patterns. And it affects how and when our bodies create melatonin. So the interruption of the circadian system, this disruption of sleep patterns, plays a role in very serious illnesses, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, cancer, sleep disorders, and cognitive dysfunctions. So wearing blue light glasses during the day can help people fall asleep. I've got a little bit of a tallow on my glasses. Fall asleep, stay asleep, and have a more restful sleep. And computer glasses with yellow tinted lenses may increase comfort when viewing digital devices for long periods of time. So they're really trying to not go all the way into the damage of blue light. They're trying to treat it in a very kind of minimizing way. But I'll tell you, I just put these on, and just like smelling the basil, I immediately feel more relaxed. I may look like a weirdo, but I immediately feel more relaxed. And it's funny, I can feel the relaxation like behind my eyes, almost like the muscles of my eyes back there in my skull, immediately kind of got softer. That's what it feels like. I know that sounds weird. And I tried them for the first time last night, and Brian did. And I did feel much more drowsy. There was a very easy transition from, early evening to getting sleepy and then to falling asleep. I can't say that I had a deeper sleep than usual. I don't usually have problems sleeping, but I definitely felt much less stressed when I was falling asleep. It was very relaxing that, there wasn't that thing that I'm sure you guys can relate to sometimes, at least, where you lie in bed after a busy day or after watching something, upsetting on Netflix or thought-provoking on Netflix or whatever you're watching before bedtime, or, scrolling, such a bad habit, X, and getting agitated or worked up, or that dopamine addiction, scrolling social media before bedtime, that leads to that transitional, whatever it is, 10 or 15 or 20 minutes, depending on how easily you fall asleep in bed, of tossing and turning and processing thoughts and worrying and feeling disoriented and just stressful. These glasses really did help with that. It's just been one day, and we'll see that it takes a little bit of adjusting, looking at the screen to get used to reading on the screen while wearing these glasses. But I'm quite sure, our brains adapt. I'm quite sure that over time I'll adapt to it. And I'm really glad I bought these. And these are called, what is it called? It's called Blue Light Glasses for Sleep. THL Sleep is what it's called. And I'm going to present my screen, which I've recently learned how to do. So exciting. And here is THL for Sleep. Again, not a sponsor, just these were recommended by people I trust. A lot of people like Pleb Cruz on X are doing really interesting work with sunlight. Certainly, Dr. Ely told me to get into the sun and ground when I was recovering from having almost died. And so this THL Sleep's premium lenses block out 99.5% of all blue light so that you can be sure your eyes stay protected. So they help you to reduce high energy visible light that can cause eye strain, migraines, and headaches. And so there you are. And let's see what they've got for shop. Yeah, they start at $29.90. So they're a little weird looking, but they're also kind of cool looking. And there you can see that you can get more expensive options for like $49, $44, but you can start with a $29 option that I think also looks really cool. $36 option. These ones are $29, nice and neutral. So there you are. That's my episode for you today. Oh my God, the world looks so blue when you take these off. Everything looks very, very kind of sharp when you take them off. But that's it. It's the end of everything I wanted to say to you guys today. I highly recommend that you try these. You may not even know how much stress in your life is caused by just the blue light and, well, electromagnetic rays and fields, which we'll talk about another time. But if something as simple as $30 plastic glasses can really dial down the sense of strain that I am very aware putting on the glasses, we just have become habituated to looking at our phones all day long, looking at a screen, sitting, if we're unfortunate enough, to under fluorescent lights, looking at LED screens with our TVs, then this is absolutely really something worth exploring and experimenting with, especially if you can save yourself from, cataracts and retinal damage and cognitive damage. I mean, my goodness, who wouldn't want to avoid that? All right. If you guys, J9 is Goose says, I'm so glad you are sharing this with us. That's really nice. As I said, I'm always nervous when I share things that seem small, but I get so much, so much positive feedback when I do. So I'm just going to forge ahead and get over my self-consciousness. And smartphone or flip phone while saving $70 a month, says James Green. That's a great point. I really want to get a non-smartphone again. I feel like, I don't know, before the iPhone was a sweet spot of digital technology for phones, because you could laboriously communicate with people. I mean, I remember doing, HIJ, right? For every letter numeral, but it wasn't coming at you with everything all the time, all day long, and especially not texts. I think about this a lot. I'm a writer, and the creative act requires different brain waves than the brain waves that are activated by using a cell phone or getting texts, which are, or even scrolling social media, which is disruption of your meditative process. Whereas I believe it's theta waves that you need to get into when you're in flow with a creative work, either beta or theta, I've forgotten, but not interrupt. And so I've started to get very kind of resentful of texts. Like, I really feel like people who text me when I really don't know them and haven't said, please text me, are really intruding on the most precious thing I have, which is my attention, in addition to the people I love, right? Where I put my attention is all I've got. And my uncle, Dan Goleman, who wrote Emotional Intelligence, is very good on this. He wrote several books on attention and focus. And, he says the greatest gift you give your loved ones is being present for them, giving them your full attention. So I do feel like all that interruption is rewiring our brains and our emotions and definitely damaging our relationships. I mean, I'm saying something really obvious. By now, there's so much science about this, but I want to go back to the flip phone. I also, another time, we'll talk to you about Shabbat, which is about to start, because I've started, this is like week 2, to observe Shabbat after I went to a Chabad Shabbat. And it's not a Jewish thing alone. You can observe Shabbat. Everyone used to, the Sabbath, the Lord's Day. But the beauty, there are many things that are beautiful about it. But one really, really beautiful thing is you don't use devices. And I, definitely had a hard time my first real Shabbat about 2 weeks ago, feeling that addiction. Oh, shouldn't I just check my phone? God won't mind. But I actually made it through 24 hours without using my phone. And it made such a difference in my ability to just have thoughts that flowed organically and also just be in a state of gratitude. I mean, it was incredible the difference it made. So, and then you see, like, I didn't happen to have my family around me, but you see, I was around families, and the beauty of all these families fully attending to each other for 24 hours, like with no interruptions, no one doing this, just being present, laughing, talking, cooking, eating, walking. I mean, going for walks, you saw all these people just strolling around Brooklyn, talking. And it was like the old days, it was like the before times, but it was absolutely beautiful. And all of us would want that for our families. It's just very hard to have the discipline to do it on a normal weekday. One of the many beautiful things about Shabbat is that it kind of forces you to do something that's not really natural at first. Really stay off the phone, not rationalize it, just stay off the phone. So, and to stay off of everything, to stay off of everything electronic, no TV watching. It sounds very deprived, but it was actually incredibly rich, because you realized there was so much to look at and so much to think about. That's maybe another conversation and another essay, but I guess I'll leave you with that. It's starting to get dark. I have to light the candles. So thank you for joining me. I want to kind of show you Loki because he's asleep on my lap. Can I do this without? No, I can't. It's too much of a hazard to show you Loki. Loki, do you want to say goodbye to everyone? You're not quite asleep. You're just snuggled. You can say goodbye to everyone, you adorable creature. And thank you. And do you want to join me here, sweetheart, or should we go to another? We're going to go to a different link, which I'm not going to operate.
But if they stay on your Twitter, you're going to be right back on.
But stay on my Twitter, because I'm going to be right back on with Brian O'Shea and our new segment called In the Lair. And so enjoy your lotion. I hope you go make some, order this, buy it, use it. You're going to love it. And you're going to love how it makes you feel, because you're not going to be filling yourself with toxins. At least I hope it's one step toward you not filling yourself with toxins. You're going to feel much, much better. And you're going to do yourself all kinds of favors. And And I hope you have a beautiful, beautiful, oh, you hear a squirrel. I hope you have a beautiful Shabbat, a beautiful Friday night, a beautiful weekend. And thank you for watching. And I will see you next time. Or actually, I'll see you in 5 minutes. Okay, bye-bye.